Hi everyone and welcome to the recap of the round number 8 of the Austrian Championship. Today I played against Florian Schwabmeder, who is a very solid international master from Austria. And as we will now see, the game ended peacefully, which I'm not that happy about, since a win would have been crucial for keeping chances for the championship. But I should count myself lucky to get away with the draw actually, as we will now have a look at the game. So we started with e4, I went c5, knight f3, d6. So already with my opening choice, you can see I went for a fight here, playing or intending to play the Sicilian. But he went for bishop b5 check, which is a very solid option for white. So already here I was not that happy. I was hoping for d4 and then some madness here in the Sicilian. But he went bishop b5 check, I went knight d7, the other option being bishop d7, knight c6 is also possible. Bishop d7 is probably the most solid option for black, but with knight d7 I tried to keep as many pieces on the board as possible. And now he went bishop a4, which is quite a fashionable line, introduced a couple of years ago. Looks pretty strange to just put the bishop back here, but white is prophylactically playing against a6, and whenever a6 comes, he usually wants to play c4, and then he argues that the bishop here looks a bit passive, but also the knight on d7 is misplaced in many cases, so the system does make a lot of sense. I went knight f6, the most logical move, castle, and now I played a6, which in hindsight I'm not that happy about. Of course, it's important to point out knight takes e4 here is not good, because after rook e1, knight f6, d4, white gets a very strong initiative and has more than enough compensation for the pawn. In hindsight, I should have gone for e6. Here, I wasn't entirely sure. I think I mixed up some lines. I actually intended to go for the setup with e6. And here I can just save this move a6, which I played in the game. And yeah, this would have been a lot smarter. So I went a6, and now he plays c4. And now this move a6 doesn't make so much sense in many cases. He played g6, and I played g6, knight c3. And now I was thinking for a bit if I would like to play bishop h6, but it just seemed too strange. I just thought maybe changing this pair of bishops makes sense for me, since I have less space and I want to trade pieces. But here after c takes d4, I thought knight takes d4 castle, and here I thought it's important for him to take here, just to get rid of this bishop now before I get knight c5. The engine also says bishop c2 is better for white, but bishop takes d7 is what I thought. Bishop takes d7, and now a4. And I felt that white should be very comfortably better here, and it turns out that this is true. So I went bishop g7, more logical, d3, short castle, h3. And yeah, here white doesn't want to go for this d4, but rather with d3. And he has two plans here, I would say. One is to move the knight and then start attacking with f4. But the more common plan is for white to play on the queen side with a3, rook b1, b4. And yeah, it's actually, this position is not easy at all for black. And here, not so familiar with this position, I already was thinking for quite too long of a time and went knight b8. Again, kind of underlining the fact that the knight on d7 is just super misplaced, and I wanted to reroute it to c6. But b6 would have been a lot better, and then just bishop b7, queen c7, e6. White is a bit better here, but it would have been a better continuation in the game for sure. White would continue with rook b1, bishop e3, b4, and yeah, white is just a little better here. But knight b8, and then I started to get into some trouble already, bishop e3, and now knight c6 was again kind of the step into the wrong direction. I should go bishop d7, and yeah, just go for this position, because knight c6 often allows him to take here, which is not very favorable for me. So bishop d7 was what I also thought about playing at first, but I didn't like bishop takes d7, probably knight f takes d7, and then d4, but it's probably not so bad for me. White is better for sure, but maybe I could even play something like knight c6, and at least the game goes on. I have like some Benko ideas here, playing b5, at least with interesting compensation. Maybe not enough, but would have been a better try than the game for sure. I went knight c6, he went queen d2, and already here bishop takes e6 would have been a great option. bc6 and now e5, like it happened in the game. Even if he doesn't play e5, like a position like knight h2, I wasn't entirely sure what's happening, because he will just push f4, f5, and my pawn structure is weak, and I didn't see a very nice plan for me here. He went queen d2 first, and now bishop d7. Again, maybe not the best move. e5 might be better, what I was also thinking about, but I didn't like bishop g5. And now I cannot really get rid of this pin here, since h6 is also not possible, and yeah, that's also what I didn't like here. I went bishop d7, which seemed logical enough, but now rook ab1 was a very strong move, and if I do nothing, he will just continue with a3 and b4. So I went knight d8, which was, again, probably not the best idea, but position is already quite hard. I was also thinking about queen a5 here, but it just looked too strange here. I thought I have some ideas after a3 with knight takes e4, but anyway, it's never really working. My idea was just to point it out. Now to take on c3 and queen takes a4, but white always has bishop h6, winning the exchange here. So I went knight e8 with the idea that now I want to reroute my knight to c7 and then possibly to e6 and d4. And also my threat here is kind of to play knight d4. So let's say he goes a3. Then I thought after knight d4 I'm already, definitely not worse anymore, because if he takes on d7 now, I will ruin his pawn structure and I'm better already. So yeah, and if he takes first on d4, then I will kick away all of his pieces. But he took on c6, which was a very strong decision, and now I took bc, which again was not great, but bishop takes c6 was also not a nice position. He pointed out d4 was what he wanted to play. Also b4 is what I thought. Again, very unpleasant position. b6 I thought, but now I didn't like d4. Still better for white, even though it would be still a lesser evil than what happened in the game. I took on c6 with the pawn. With the point that now after b4, I still thought I'm much worse, but at least here I don't have this weakness on b7, and I can try to exchange as many pieces as possible and hope for a draw here. But he went e5, which was very strong, and now I took on e5. And yeah, if knight c7, which I also thought about, I just thought he will take here and push d4 at some point, maybe immediately. And yeah, my pawn structure is just horrible, so that was out of the question for me. I took on e5, and now at least there was some imbalance. He still has the much better pawn structure here, but I do have the bishop pair for now, and if these pawns start rolling, it could also go sideways for him. So I think that was at least a good practical decision here to take on e5, even though it's objectively worse. Engine points out that bishop c5 is just much stronger, but knight a4 is what he played, also looks logical, and he took with the knight. Now went knight f5, which apparently is the wrong idea. Bishop f5 would have been better, but after queen c2, I did not see how to proceed. Computer just says a5, but yeah, white is anyway always better. He will somehow prepare to play d4, like rook d1 first, maybe queen e2. He could also start by playing queen e2, I guess. And he's just a lot better. I played knight f5 with the idea that maybe I can take on e3 sometimes or go to d4 with the knight. And now he played rook e1, which I was happy about. I thought that b4 here is the strongest plan, which is also approved by the engine, and he will simply start pushing this pawn, a4, b5. And yeah, there's basically nothing I can do. I can just wait for my demise, bishop c8. I thought I would try something like queen c7 and then rook d8, but I don't have any other active moves than this, so this would have been the way to go for him. He went rook e1 instead, bishop c8, and again I think this plan with b4 would have been best. But he went rook d1 and he wanted to push d4 at some point. Now queen c7 and g4. This was kind of his last mistake. I think still here b4, and he would still be much better. So this b4 plan is something he just did not think about. He went g4. Which was also a nice try, but I was lucky to have enough resources here. I went knight d4, the only move. If I go to d6, then bishop h6, and I'm just collapsing here. Let's say f6, takes, and d4, and I thought I can just resign here. My pieces are just so passive, and the knight on c5 is super strong. Yeah, so knight d4 had to be played. He took on d4 and bishop h6, and now e5 was very important, only move, just keeping the grip on the pawn on d4. He took on g7, f4. So this was his idea originally, and he thought that he's a lot better here, or at least that it's very dangerous for me. But after e takes f4, now queen f2, queen d6 everything is holding together here for me. I saw even that the engine says h5 is possible, which I didn't think about at all, which would have been totally unclear. Now it's like a 3-result game, but I was already happy to see the draw here after queen d6. knight e4, queen e5. Now I'm a pawn up, protecting both of these pawns. And after knight e2, queen f6, and he decided to repeat moves here. There's also nothing better for me here. He could try rook e4 here, but I thought this is already a step into the wrong direction for him. g5, and all of a sudden my pawns here are very solid. And now I also have my own trumps. If I get h5, I have some counterplay on the king side. His king is weaker than mine, probably. So yeah, I was kind of hoping for this, for him to overstep, but he was already low on time, so he repeated moves. And yeah, there was nothing here for me. I thought it didn't make sense to try anything stupid here. Queen g5 was also playable for some reason, but it felt to me like only I'm risking here, and I did not want to lose this game even, because even with the draw now, the title is probably out of reach for me, but still a good placement and some good prize money is on the table. So that's why I did not want to go crazy today. So yeah, thank you for watching. Tomorrow will be the last round. The recap will probably come pretty late in the evening, because I will depart to Vienna, to my home, right after the game. But yeah, until then, thank you for watching. You can follow me on my socials, Instagram, Twitter. Check out my website, fitexploratory.com. And until then, see you next time.